Listen to Downtown Hot Radio on the air 24 hours a day and 7 days a week.
You're now tuned into the Real Rap Radio Show. I'm your host, Walil Archer on Downtown Hot Radio. I have a special guest with me. I'm author JB. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Walil. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Let everybody know where you are.
I'm in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. It is very hot here, but I think it's not as hot as it is where you are.
Yes. And talk to me about being an author. How welcoming are they to you in your city for you being an author?
I do. The university likes it. If people, I work at the University of North Carolina, and the university really likes it if their professors write books for a general audience. So not only being in the ivory tower, but also sharing knowledge and insights with the general public.
And how did you begin your journey as an author?
I think I began that let's say after a number of years, after having been in the profession for a long time, I did notice actually that very little of the things that we did really reached society at large. So it remained very much, let's say, writing academics for academics. And I thought that was a little bit of a pity, because we had also important things to share to society, just as well as society should inform universities. So because of that, I said, let me start to write books that are targeted to a general audience, so in an accessible way, that you don't have to have a whole lot of knowledge to be able to understand it as part of, I think, the service that the university has to society. That was my motivation.
Gotcha. And let's talk about your current book.
So my current book is Warrior, Queen, Scientist, Activist, Gritty Women Who Bend the Arc of History. That is obviously, as the title is saying, it's a book about women. But when I'm talking about warrior, queen, scientist, activist, I'm talking about women who really changed history through their lives and their leadership in different types of endeavors. That can be politics, that can be war, that can be, say, the fight for human rights. So women have made contributions across many different fields, and that is what my book investigates, writes about, and celebrates.
And tell us briefly about some of the women that you highlight and some of their accomplishments.
Yeah, so in this book, I highlight 25 great women from about 1500 BC to today. There are women that people will know, other women that people may say, hey, I didn't really know so much about. A woman that is fairly well known in America, but actually less well known than one would suspect, is a woman called Virginia Hall. She was a spy in the Second World War, and so she was incredibly courageous. She was a woman with a disability. She had half of her leg was amputated, and she was a spy for Great Britain, and then also for America, in France during the Second World War. And her activities saved the lives of countless people, and was, as acknowledged by the US Army, very important in destroying the Wehrmacht in Normandy. She's not as well known, but actually it's a very interesting story. Another person, to give you just another example, is Queen Elizabeth I of England, who essentially destroyed the fearsome Spanish Armada in the 1580s, and actually she put England on its path to great glory. But again, somebody very different is the Angolan Queen Jenga. She fought for 40 years tooth and nail against the Portuguese colonial invaders in the 17th century. And her story is a celebration of grit, to the highest extent because she had one disappointment after the other, and she continued to go on, and actually she was at the end successful. So it's a very encouraging story about that. And I have a number of other women. I've chosen women across time, from 1500 BC to today, across space. Most what has been written about women, which is not a lot anyway, is about great European women. But I'm talking about women from the US, from Latin America, Africa, Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. And also across endeavor, if you will. I mentioned that already earlier. I'm talking about great women in the realm of politics, in the realm of war, and in the realm of the fight for human rights.
Now, what was the inspiration behind the 25 women you selected?
My challenge was not in finding the women. My challenge was in limiting myself to a manageable number of women, because I could easily have written about 50, but the book would then become quite long, and I already spent 4 years on this. So I tried to select women across those criteria: time, space, type of endeavor, and then essentially, you can cross-classify that all. And I have one or more examples in each of these cells. I actually wrote a number of chapters that never made it into the book because they didn't fit as well into my scheme. So I may, decide to publish them a little bit later.
Now, how many chapters does your book have?
My chapter has 21 chapters. I have 7 chapters for each type of endeavor, 7 chapters on great women, who made a real impact by making courageous decisions in war. 7 chapters, in politics, and 7 chapters in human rights. Some of you may say, well, 3 times 7 is 21. Here we're talking about 25. That is because the first chapter is about women in antiquity that broke through the iron ceiling, iron ceiling of the sword. There I have 5 women, because when we go back very far in history, the amount of material is not always as much available. So therefore I have 5 women, somewhat shorter stories in that first chapter.
Gotcha. So what would you like for the readers to walk away from reading the book?
I would say, first of all, we can be inspired and encouraged by those great women. And that's inspired and encouraged. That applies to contemporary female readers. Many of them have come back to me and said, this is really great and I want to show it. I want to actually give it also to my daughter to see that actually also they can do great things. That's absolutely great. I would also hope that men would be inspired by the great deeds, just as women are inspired by the great deeds of men like Churchill, FDR, or President Lincoln, or whatever. Women are inspired. So can men be inspired by the great women of these days. Actually, one of the women in the book is my personal role model and has influenced my own thinking and leadership very deeply. Being inspired and encouraged. And a second thing that I would like people to take away is that you can succeed across all kind of dimensions of intelligence, emotional intelligence, about education, about wealth, etc. But there is one thing that you need. That is something that all those women had in common. It wasn't high education. It wasn't necessarily high intelligence. All of them had grit. Grit is the power to be focused, be self-confident, have motivation to succeed what you set out to do, and resilience to overcome the inevitable setbacks in life. So in the book, I also have a grit test, so you can assess your own grit and I point to resources what you can do to improve it. But essentially that aligns with the encouragement, because people can build their own grit themselves, and you don't have to go to Harvard or to UNC to be successful, the education part, or to be rich as a Kennedy or something like that. But you need to have grit, and that you can start to develop already at an early stage on. So there is a profound level of encouragement. History and greatness is not the preservative only of man. It is for men and women alike, and we can build it. We can build it by building our grit.
Nice. Is there any specific order that you put the women in, like from 1 to 25?
Great point. I put them in 3 buckets: war, politics, and human rights. And within each of these buckets, I put them in chronological order, because that is, for most people, easier to follow than if I switch, from today, next chapter 1500 BC, the third chapter 1500 AD, etc. So within each bucket, chronological.
And how did you come up with the title?
That is a good point. I tested a number of different titles with a lot of people whom I know very well, people in the military, other authors, potential interested people. So a number of people that are in my friends and acquaintances, colleagues around. I came up with a number of titles, then I asked them to vote, and then I kind of tweaked it, changed it, etc. And I got feedback from them, and based on that, I came up with the title. So I did some market research, which title would resonate the best. Now, of course, it's to the reader whether they like the title, but that is how I got to my title.
As a self-published author, did you face any challenges with writing this book?
No, because the publishing industry is such that, with very few exceptions, essentially you have to do it yourself. So I didn't. It was published with Ex Libris, which means that they do a lot of the marketing and the other kind of activities, essentially. So it's somewhat a little bit of a hybrid model. But the reality of the situation is that you have to do it. For me, I've had a number of books published with commercial publishers. This one is self-published. In terms of, let's say, the support that I got from the publisher, because this is published through a publisher, is a little bit confusing. Not much of a difference. You have to do it yourself.
Nice, nice. So talk to me about your other books, because you also written other books.
Yes, the book before this book is Time to Lead, lessons for today's leaders from decisions that changed history. That is talking about 17 great leaders and the decisions that they took, and what we can learn from those decisions in terms of leadership style. So there I explore different leadership styles, like persuasive leadership or charismatic leadership, etc., by highlighting for each leadership style several great leaders, like FDR or Alexander the Great or so. And that course is the basis for my executive MBA leadership course, Leadership Lessons from History, which I've now taught for a number of years. And I'm actually very happy that the demand for the course is each time vastly larger than the number of students that can attend. Every time I teach it, about 125 students can attend. And it's also vastly oversubscribed. So that clearly indicates, very interestingly, that there is a great interest among also today's, new and upcoming generation in what lessons does history give us here and now to become better leaders in our own challenges. And in the Gen AI type era that we are currently in, both the book Time to Lead, as well as my new book, Warrior, Queen, Scientist, Activist, there is also a ChatGPT associated with the book, in which, if you have the OpenAI Premium package, you can essentially say, type in your problems, your questions, and it will generate insights based on the book. And if you have read the book, those insights are going to be significantly more useful. And I use that also in my leadership course. I tell the students, okay, you ask me any question about whatever leadership problem you are facing right now, here and now, and let's see what it gives in, and let's continue. And that is, I think, the wave of the future, integrating books with Gen AI.
Yeah. Now, how challenging was it to learn AI and how to integrate the two together?
Well, that is great. For me, that was not challenging because that was done by a friend, a former PhD student of mine, Lieutenant Colonel Dan Finkenstedt. And so he is an AI expert. And so I gave him the text of the book, and then he kind of trains a separate app on the content of that book. So to be honest, this was a situation in which I outsourced this to somebody that knew much more about it. However, I can use it myself as a user, but I'm not the person that can put it in Gen AI. That is that's beyond my scope of competence.
Understood. And as we close out, any final thoughts or closing remarks that you want to add?
Well, I hope people will take a look at the book and find it inspiring. I've gotten a lot of feedback from high military people, politicians, and other ones that they find it very useful. Major General Trevino of the U.S. Air Force said that she was on a trip from here to Japan, a 14-hour trip, and she started to read the book, and she read it from A through Z because she found it so compelling. Now, that is obviously the kind of feedback, Walil, that any author loves, and I hope that your listeners will also give it a little bit of their look, and if they like it, that they leave some comments or rating or etc. on Amazon. And please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I would love to communicate with you further, but also your listeners in the future.
And let everyone know where they can purchase the book at and your name on LinkedIn.
Yes. So you can purchase the book most easily is just to purchase it on Amazon. The paperback is $17.99. There is also a hardcover, but that's a bit more expensive. And there is the Kindle, which is cheaper. It's $9.99, I believe. And on LinkedIn, the easiest is to type in my full name in the search box, Jan-Benedict Steenkamp. Or if you just type in Steenkamp, that already makes it probably easy. Jan-Benedict Steenkamp, Steenkamp. In the search box, I will show up, and send me a connect. And I would love to connect, because I publish a lot of things on LinkedIn, on leadership, on history, on politics, and on business.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to thank you for doing the interview today, JB.
It was a pleasure to talk to you, Walil.
My pleasure. So that's my time today on the Real Rap Radio show on Downtown Hott Radio. And I'll see you guys next time on the Real Rap Radio show with Walil Archer. Thanks, guys.
Listen to Downtown Hott Radio on the air 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Tune in by downloading the Downtown Hott Radio's mobile app. Listen on our website, www.downtownhottradio.com.